And joining us now to discuss this week's weather forecast, let's say hello to Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien. Eric, hope you had a good weekend, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I spent all day Saturday at a 12-hour swim meet in 95-degree heat. So I had a great weekend because I wasn't in the pool though. But yeah, it was a good one, and I'm glad to see these summer weekends rolling through.
I agree. I agree. I spent some time mowing the yard in 95-degree heat, which was my own choice. Lost a few pounds. We move forward from here. Eric, looking over the weekend here into this week, though, we got to talk about the rainfall that was in the forecast and the cooler temperatures. But some of this rain, it was the case of the haves and the have nots again, wasn't it?
It was, and it's interesting you bring up mowing your lawn because, and this isn't an indicator of what it's going on in the fields, but I haven't mowed my lawn in Champaign, Illinois, since the end of June. So it's been about a month since I last put a mower over the top of it, and I'm in one of those spots where the storms will build close and then they'll break apart. And there's been a lot of folks in the Midwest that have had that similar experience, and that's the hyper local nature of thunderstorm development. And you're right, some places that have been dry when the storms approach, they tend to bust up. There's too much dry condition there. There's not enough moisture to recycle, and it kills them. So yeah, you have a weekend here where there were parts of Illinois, there were parts of Indiana, there were parts of the Eastern Corn Belt that got rain galore, just persistent thunderstorms. And then there's other places that missed out on that. And I think that's going to be my focus going forward, because you think about parts of Iowa, parts of southwestern Minnesota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. That front slid south of them this weekend and didn't deliver the rain in those locations. And now the front's going to set up from Colorado to like Maryland, that whole narrow strip, delivering very heavy rainfall to the Ohio River Valley, parts of the southern half of Illinois, Missouri, parts of Iowa, but Kansas, southern Nebraska. That's where the rain's going to be, and it's just going to slowly slide south. So the problem is if you're in that western and northwestern part of the Corn Belt, you didn't get the rain from the last front that came through, and now it's all south of you. And so we're going to just continue to talk about those pockets that are typically heavy hitters in producing huge amounts of corn and beans, missing out on this. So yeah, this was a pretty complicated forecast because those fronts were so slow in their movement. They were fed with plenty of moisture, but my goodness, it was a tricky weekend to kind of figure out where that front was going to be.
Well, how about moving forward here? I mean, are we going to see a chance, or are we going to see heat come back, or cool temperatures going to stick around? What are you looking at as we go through the rest of this week and get into the month of August, Eric?
Well, the heat over the next 7 days will be in Texas. It'll be in like Arkansas, Oklahoma to start the week. They're going to still see the 105-degree temperatures, and it's going to be big time in the Pacific Northwest. I was looking today, Yakima, right there in the middle of the Columbia Basin, they might hit 108 Fahrenheit by the middle of this week. So the heat's all west, and the heat is down in the southern plains. But much of the Midwest, the East Coast, there's heat in the East Coast today, but it's going to move out. We're going to get some cooler weather in. So I just wanted to know, and this was the biggest struggle last week, was the pattern that was setting for the end of July and the very beginning of August going to hang on into mid-August? And it looks as though that ridge that built into the west was just a temporary feature. By the time we get to the end of this week, most of us meteorologists will be talking about that breaking down, going back over to a trough in the Gulf of Alaska, and that puts the heat squarely back into the middle part of the United States, where it's been in June and July of this year. So the rain that's coming this week is going to be critical to just buying time for folks in the midsection of the country. And those that miss out on it could go back over into a pattern where it's going to be just those ridge riding storms that come through and save the day as the heat comes back on. So it didn't completely break down. It didn't get rid of the heat risk in the midsection of the country. And we're going to be talking about it again for the next probably 45 days or so as we just slowly move toward fall. But right now, it looks as though this little pattern shift we get this week only lasts for about 5 to 7 days.
And of course, that heat and dryness going to come back here into August. It sounds like that critical time for soybeans. And Eric, I've been seeing a lot of pictures, social media, some of the areas you mentioned that missed out on the rains, and even some of the areas that are seeing the rain here this week. Missouri, back into Kansas. We're already seeing some pictures of pretty rough looking corn crop and potentially soybeans as well. I haven't seen as many soybean pictures, but some of that corn crop in some areas that hasn't seen the rain is looking pretty rough outside of the I states, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, even within the I states, I was amazed at just my travels over the last 10 days at how how often I could see down the rows of the soybean fields. In other words, like the canopy hadn't closed. I don't know if that was due to late plant or what, but it feels vulnerable when you start to see it look like that. So yeah, to bring back on heat stress and potentially drought stress in the month of August, of course, will really eat away at the potential for the crop in soybeans. And what I like to do is look at not only what the atmosphere is going to give, what's already in the soil. And I was looking this morning in my morning report, and I put out a map that just showed current soil moisture values down to 16 inches. And you just see a lot of the lower side, that the 20 to 30% range, rather than that 50 to 80% range, which is what you'd hope for that location, any location in the Midwest to have. So yeah, it means that the heat that comes back isn't going to be undone by moisture that's already there, which means you could endure it. I think we're going to have more places dealing with some moisture and heat stress from both the atmosphere and what's not in the soil right now.
Eric, any other thoughts you want to share this week? Anything we're watching in the tropics or over in Europe, etc.? Any other final thoughts for us?
Yeah, I think if we see the same kind of transitional pattern in the United States, we should expect another heat wave in Europe at some point. They endured a nasty one over the last 10 days. And you bring up the tropics. I had myself convinced that by the end of July we would see some tropical activity coming off of Africa. Squashed all of that with the weekend forecasts. We saw that the models did a terrible job predicting where the MJO was going to be, and us meteorologists didn't see that they were going to be wrong. So I thought we'd see some more tropical activity, but the Sahara just sent out a bunch of dust rather than any tropical systems. And as a result, I think we're going to have to just wait till we get into August before we really start talking about anything coming out of the tropics.
Well, we'll continue to watch the weather closely here at home and abroad. And of course, we appreciate the time as always with that, Eric Snodgrass of Nutrien. Thanks so much, sir. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good.